Tonight on Newswire LA, we conclude our look at the Museum of Traffic Control. All of that and more coming up right after the credits. Good evening and welcome to Newswire LA. I'm your host, Chin Thomasangsi. Tonight we complete our look at the Museum of Traffic Control. We find out why John dismantled the museum and took it back to Iowa with him. We also find out some more tidbits of motoring history in Los Angeles and the nation. So sit back and enjoy, and we'll see you back here shortly.
This PV signal is so directionally focused that the camera picks up the green and yellow arrow, but not the red. This sometimes led drivers to assume bulbs have burnt out. Weight and a lack of part interchangeability was also a minus. Finally, cost became a factor with each unit at $1,000. 3M did offer a package to cities on a budget that allowed a refit of existing incandescent signals.
This is a 3M 8-inch. It's the similar version to the 131, which is the one we saw earlier, but this is got the adapters that go into a standard traffic signal. And you could do the same thing where you can mask out the indication from an adjoining lane, or if it's closely spaced signals, so the furthest signal's not seen, you know, that kind of a thing. So,
Dogged by design flaws and improved LED and incandescent technology, 3M discontinued its line of PV signals. This signal, commonly called a doghouse, is one of the types of signals that took over for the PV signal.
These have been around for a while elsewhere, but in California probably in the last 10 years maybe. They've gained more widespread use, as California used to be a protected left arrow state. You know, it was either a green, yellow, red ball or a green arrow and then yellow, red ball. But more and more engineers have found that you can still make a left turn safely if no oncoming traffic is coming. So they came up with this idea out here and began to use the protective permissive signal, which is what this is officially called, in which you do get the protected green and yellow to turn left. And once that is done, you get the green ball in which left turn traffic has to wait for opposing traffic to clear. So it's become more and more common.
These signals use LED diodes instead of incandescent bulbs. The diodes give off more light, use less energy, and have a lifespan 10 to 20 times that of a regular signal bulb.
This is a modified Econolite pedestrian light. It's just like the one you'd previously seen with the exposed neon tube, but it had been converted to LED. And by doing that, they basically sawed out the divider between the don't and the walk and put on this egg crate visor over the top. But they use the same housing. And that's a good reason why there's not that many out there to collect, because a lot of the contractors would just retrofit them in the field and throw out all the guts of the old signals. It starts out with a walking man, and then when it goes to the flashing hand, it gives you an indication of how many seconds are left to cross the street. So it'll basically count down to 0, and at that point the hand goes steady, indicating you have no more time to cross the street.
And you were saying that some of these signals have become the fodder of drivers who want to say, hey, I've got 10 more seconds.
Exactly. People are starting to use it to their advantage rather than what it was intended for.
Urban railways disappeared almost a half-century ago due to lobbying by Big Oil and the Big Three automakers, but worsening traffic has brought them back. Drivers now share the roads with these trains in many areas. Because the lines have been dogged by fatal accidents, signals and signage are a must. The technology is the same for railroads, but has been updated with the latest technology, such as LEDs or PV signals. It's interesting to note that even though we live in what is supposed to be the golden age, we still rely on technology predating man's walk on the moon and the internet. LA's infrastructure has undergone many changes to keep up with technology. An exception must be made for the city's network of street lamps. As traffic signals entered the digital age, LA street lamps in many quarters have not. Aside from updates to the bulbs themselves, many of these devices have been in service for anywhere between 50 to 90 years. The Wilshire Boulevard lanterns line 6 miles of street. The lantern alone is almost 8 feet tall and is made of solid bronze. A close-up shows sculpted women at each corner with a finial resembling a bowl of fruit at the top. West on Wilshire are dual mercury vapor street lamps on sculpted cast iron poles. The base for this and the lantern are equally exquisite. Lining Olympic Boulevard are cast iron street lamps with even finer detail. The original teardrop luminaire has been replaced by a cobra head, but it doesn't take away from the dragon supporting the mast and the finial of fruit atop the pole. This lamp in Carthay Circle is not ornate in terms of the actual light, but its base is the true work of art. Its design mirrors the Art Deco style so prevalent in Los Angeles during the 30s, and in Carthay Circle in particular. These poles line about 2 miles of Olympic Boulevard. Finally, some of LA's most famous styles were torch styles, whose globes were termed acorns for their shape by enthusiasts. The dual torches were designed in stone and cast iron. Like traffic signals, the lights were controlled by time switches like this one. As light systems are replaced or retrofitted, the switches are removed and possibly junked. The Los Angeles Bureau of Power and Light, predecessor to the Department of Water and Power, installed all of these switches. Collectors, like Signalfan, who obtain signals illegally, usually find them here, in signal graveyards owned by contractors. If local governments don't require contractors to return old signals and signs, they've been known to sell or give them to collectors. The majority of these signals would otherwise become scrap. Though he has one of the largest collections, Signalfan is certainly not alone in his passion.
I was very amazed. I thought that, maybe there might be 100 people here or there. Because, again, before I started the Signalfan Club, I got everything via email. I had a lot of correspondence back and forth and things like that. So I thought, well, there's a person here, a person there. Then I thought, well, let's start this club and start with the people that we've been emailing back and forth. Why not start in a forum where we can kind of post stuff and all that? So I started that, and it got to be 30, 40 people. And I thought, okay, that's probably about right. But more and more people kept popping in, and different people, different areas, people I'd never heard of before, and suddenly, wow, I didn't know there was a forum like this that had, something I'd been interested in since a kid, and so it was amazing. And now we're over 300, almost 400, I think, people in there. Granted, there are probably 400 not all active, but at least there's, I think, a good 150 people that talk back and forth at various times. But I was truly amazed that we had all those.
And each one of them is a proud signal collector. These images come from TrafficSignalMuseum.com. The photo of the Potts replica signal comes from this collection. Its curator is Jerry, who comes from the great state of Michigan. This signal setup is at the home of Bear, who lives in Iowa. Many collectors don't put their signals outdoors due to harsh winter weather, but Bear has created a fully functional unit and plans to add at least one more. Marble-Light Man comes from New Jersey, where he has his New Jersey Traffic Museum. He's a huge fan of the Marble-Light signal, hence his handle. He serves as one of the managers of Signalfan's Club. Then there's Mick Siggs from Maryland. He has an advantage over many collectors since he works in the traffic industry every day. Some items in Mick Siggs' collection have been rescued from the scrap heap at the end of a day's work.
I'm truly amazed at the diversity and how people are so knowledgeable about signals and the various areas that they like. You've got your restoration guys that just love taking a signal apart, ripping it down to the bare wire and bolts, and then rebuilding it. Completely sandblasting and repainting, and your diehard people that want to make it just like it came out of the box and hung in the 1920s and 30s. And it just amazes me that there are people that have that skill, because I'm really not one of them. I prefer the signals as they came off the pole and on, and the way I remember them, old and dirty and all that. But I have a true appreciation for the guys that want to sandblast them and make them look like new mint condition.
For a prized item, a Signalfan will pay the price to own it. An exposed tube neon Econolite similar to this one sold for $500 on eBay recently. How about something in Signalfan's collection? Let's say the Wiley signal head.
And how long have you had this particular piece?
Since January.
So this is a recent acquisition.
This is one of my most recent acquisitions.
How did you find it?
Basically, a guy wrote me from up north around San Jose that he was looking to get rid of it. It was in his back area. It used to be in his front porch. And if I was interested, to work on a price and come up and get it.
If I may ask, how much?
$1,000. So this is one of my most expensive pieces to purchase, but it's also the oldest and most rare. So it's kind of was worth it to me. $1,000 was worth it to be able to pick up a piece of history such as this. But so my wife and I went up one weekend and picked it up.
So she was fine with you spending $1,000 for this piece.
Yeah. She had known how much I had been looking for one of these, so she was definitely willing to help me obtain it.
It's a beautiful piece.
Well, thank you. I got this one in an antique store in Missouri. So it must have been used on a main street down there. I don't know the particular history of it, but I found it there.
Antique stores seem to be the one place where a Signalfan can find these different things.
Yeah, it's true. Place where they don't really sometimes know the value and such. Again, this is great representation of where they're from. This was more used in the South, the Southern Auto Flow. That's when it was used in Texas and Missouri and some of those states. GEs were used in the North, Montana, and that's where I had gotten this particular one from, and Marblite in the East.
Have any other collectors visited the museum?
Well, I've had several members come out to the museum that are on the Signalfan Club. I had one from Arizona come out. He's known as I'm Proud to Be an American. And he's from the Phoenix area, and he has a growing collection, and he's come out to visit. I have a couple of local guys here, one in LA and one in Orange, that have come out and visited. And it's kind of fun to be able to visit face to face with somebody that you just talked to on the club forums and find out more of their background and what their interest is and stuff. So as far as visitors, I had a visit from HGTV. It came out and did a Offbeat America. They have Offbeat America series, of which I did a 5-minute segment of one of their series. And I had Discovery Channel out here. They're working on an event for later in 2005. And then another private group came out. I don't know if they're doing it for Discovery Channel or not. They didn't really tell me. But another little group that filmed out here as well. So I've had 3 prior to yourself.
Signalfan's collection has been used for various corporate events.
A lot of corporations wanted to do events outside with different themes, and it got to the place where the same old, water party, under the sea type party, or the themes were kind of run-of-the-mill, Western party, that kind of thing. So the person I worked for, my boss, and I came up, because he knew of my hobby, came up with an idea of how about a street traffic type theme that we can incorporate. There were very many variations of this we could do. What we did approaching Ford was a California coastal party representing different areas along the coast of California, 101 basically. It was a Highway 101 party. So we do mock-ups of San Luis Obispo and San Juan Capistrano, San Diego, kinds of that, and then putting road signs and traffic lights around that. So that was kind of the idea with Ford. So we did a big old 2-week event with them with road carpet. They had roadway carpet and traffic signals, road signs lining that, and then these different vignettes where the buffets were of the different cities along 101. Also did a Route 66 party, which worked really well out in the Central Valley, and then did another party for Chrysler out in Reno, Nevada, with traffic signals, road signs, and we had the Doobie Brothers play the concert. So it was kind of fun to have the whole thing. And that was in a hotel ballroom. So we got to set up the full-size signals, 10-foot high, with the walk, don't walk, and the signs with the roadway carpet and all that. So it was really, really kind of a fun thing.
So what does a guy like this know about staging events of this magnitude?
The last few years I've worked in production stage lighting for corporate events, special events, theater, those kinds of things, and putting stage lights up, running dimmers, control, and running the production itself. And then lately, in the last couple of years, I've gotten more into the paperwork side of things with logistics and equipment management, things like that. The more the office type stuff, and not going out day and day on weeks on end out of town. I've been more a local boy now.
Signalfan's Club is a forum for fans and collectors in all corners of the country to overdose on everything related to signals and signs. Recently, though, club members use this passion and forum for a greater good. Justin Thomas was one of the many members of the Signalfan Club. His handle was VDOT Wannabe. Justin tragically lost his life in early 2006, ironically, while working in a basket replacing traffic signals in Virginia. He was only 19 years old, and this was his dream job. In the aftermath of his passing, members of the Signalfan Club began a collection. An eBay auction of a signal similar to this one was also held, with all proceeds to assist in funeral and other expenses. What is notable is that the membership of the club is dispersed throughout the country and the world, meaning most of them had never met Justin personally. What mattered in the end was that he was a Signal fan, and his fellow Signal fans stepped up when it counted the most. I have yet to witness a retail unit which equals Sears Pico store in practical efficiency, merchandise engineering, operation, layout, and presentation of merchandise. This is a quote from a rival retail executive describing the Sears Roebuck & Company store that opened at the corner of Pico and Mullet in 1939. The store was a prototype for all Sears stores to follow, as well as rival stores. Sears boasted an automobile service center seen here to the right, and a garden shop to the left. The building itself was an architectural marvel in that it was cut into the existing hillside. It provided rooftop, mezzanine, and ground level parking for shoppers, and its neon sign with green lettering could be seen for miles. Sears Pico sat in an area known as the Vineyard, and just beyond its property line sat the depot for the trolley lines. This depot was a major stop between Santa Monica, Venice, and downtown LA. Sears saw many of its shoppers come in on these trains. Sears Pico continued, but its design became obsolete in an age of giant malls, stores like Walmart, and the computer age. Sears Pico closed for good in 1985. Unlike Bullock's Wilshire, no one saw fit to save it from the wrecking ball. This pit, the basement level of the store devoted to heavy appliances and power tools, along with the walls and the small door, is all that's left of the store. The site is slated to become the new Midtown Plaza, which will boast a Home Depot, Starbucks, and a host of other businesses, large and small. The irony is that Sears Pico offered almost all of these amenities under one roof. My, how times have changed. Just as the end came for Sears Pico, the end of the line came for the Museum of Traffic Control in Southern California. Signalfan decided to pack up and move on.
Yeah, basically my family and I have recently decided to make the move from Southern California back to Pella, Iowa. Pella, Iowa is where my father was born. That's his birthplace. And growing up as a child, we'd spend summers in Iowa with grandparents.